Hi everyone, thank you again for taking the time to join our webinar today. My name is Della and I'm the sales manager at Ataccama. On behalf of the team, welcome to the first session of our APAC Digital Conference, which includes a series of weekly webinars covering topics across data management. So today with me, I have Trevor, who is a co-founder and APAC Research Director at TRA. I also have David, who is a product owner at Ataccama. So a little bit context today about this webinar. Trevor conducted a quantitative research last year across APAC to explore how businesses are using data and technology to drive business outcome. So for the first part of the session today, Trevor will take us through some of the insights and findings from this research. Following up on that, David will take us through the concept of self-driving data management, what it is and how organizations can get started, and what opportunity and how organization can leverage self-driving data management. We do have time at the end for Q&A, so feel free to use the Q&A or chat function to submit your questions. We will try to address all the questions at the end of the session. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Trevor to take us through some of the findings from this research.
Thanks very much, Della, and thanks very much to the Ataccama team for having me join today in the webinar, and thank you very much to all of you for joining us from wherever you are. I hope you're keeping very well. As Della mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about data quality and why, in TRA's view, it's one of the things that's going to drive your differentiation, your competitive success in your relative markets going forward at the moment. TRA, we're just a little bit of background. We're a boutique research analyst and advisory firm. We work with vendors, technology vendors, we work with service providers and their partners, and we work with end user customers like many of you on the call today, to try and help understand how to use technology better. Now, I remember a number of years ago now, where we were all talking very much about things like big data and value, velocity, volume, variety of data, and all these wonderful things around how much data is out there in the world, and all the availability of it for us as well. And we started getting into a whole bunch of other ones, like having data scientist teams and a whole bunch of executives talking about being data driven in their organizations. Now, in our view, there's a lot of organizations that have done a really, really good job at this and have come some way to really taking advantage of the data that is available to them. But on the other hand, we also still see that there is a lot of progress we could make. There's still a lot of advancements we could make. There's still a lot of data literacy that's just not there. I think for many of us, if you watch any of the news and you stay up to date with all the things that are happening in the world today, we'd know that that data conversation really just isn't necessarily at the level it could be. Not to say that there aren't some wonderful people with some wonderful skills when it comes to getting insights out of data today. But there's also a lot of people who just don't get it still. And we're still talking about the data itself and not necessarily about the results that we can get from those data. So one of the things we wanted to focus on today was to talk about some of the opportunities that might be before you, particularly as we move past some of the things that have been happening with COVID-19. And many of us have had disruptions to what we normally do, to what our business as usual is. So how we can get into the recovery phase and then back into a new normal, if you like, for a lot of us going forward at the end of 2020 and into the next few years as well. We did do some research, as Della mentioned, over the last couple of years. Now, this comes from a quantitative survey we ran across the region, which is around 2,600 respondents of people similar to yourselves on the call, in terms of where they're looking at the core technologies that they already do, where are they going to do their investments, and then also their emerging technology. Now, this was before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, so there's a little bit of change. We would expect that some of this investment would change to other areas. So we would see definitely, in particular, some of the emerging technology stuff be pulled back quite a lot and move back into some of the core areas or the workplace technology areas to try and support those changes that we've seen. But that's beside the point. What I really want to emphasize here on this slide, and some what the research tells us, that if you look at any of these different technology investments that many of your organizations have been making, it's all about the data and how the data can help support these areas. If you don't have a great data strategy and great quality data sitting behind that, then a lot of these investments just aren't going to be optimized. They're not going to get the returns that you want, or get the returns that you could get with great quality data as well. So one of the other parts of this, though, is that we don't want you to sell data conversations, a TRA in any case. We want you to sell the stuff that you get, the results that you get, the outcomes that you get from using the data in the best way that you can. It's a little bit like in days gone past. We work a lot with people who used to sell servers and storage and hardware equipment and all the rest of it. You don't sell the speeds and the feeds of these different technologies. What you sell is the thing that runs on top of it. And that's the same with data conversations. So for many of you, if you're looking to try and build a great business case internally around using data better and getting better data-driven projects up and off the ground, then it's not the fact that you're doing data science, or you're doing data analytics, or data management, or building a data lake, or whatever things are that underlie the technologies. It's the actual opportunity that you're going for. So I want to talk a little bit more around 5 of those opportunities as we go through now, and it's just the 5 that we've come up with. They're some of the top level ones that we've experienced, or the advisory customers that we work with often come to us and talk to us about these opportunities. So there's some of the more top line opportunities. Obviously, for each of you in your own individual industries and organizations, you're going to have specific opportunities that relate to the data that you have. But hopefully some of these give you some ideas about things which, as you do go back into, the recovery mode, or, as we go forward over the next few months, that you might be able to start addressing some of these opportunities, or to look at them as things that you might take on board for your organization as well. Keep in mind, under all of these opportunities is that concept of data quality, and making sure that the quality of what you have is going to drive the better outcomes that you can get. Now, as Della said, as we go through this webinar, if you do have any questions, by all means, please do put it in the chat for us, and we'll try and get some responses for you at the end of the webinar as well. We'll also have a couple of poll questions which we'll stop and pause for, which I'd love to get some of your feedback in as well. But first of all, let's have a look at the first opportunity that we see. And that's something that all of us have been looking at for some time. This isn't a new one. A lot of today is actually going to be more validation than it is something that's revelatory for any of you. But that customer experience conversation, which we've gone through over the last few years, really, you have to ask yourself, do the customers, your customers, now by customer here, I mean, whether it's a commercial organization, whether your customer is students, whether it is patients in healthcare environments, whether it is citizens and you're in a government agency of some kind or another, all types of customers, or even your internal customers, if you're your B2B customers, whatever customer means for you, their experiences and their expectations are going to change. We've all gone through something in some level or another that has changed the way that we interact with organizations, the way that we interact with brands over the last few weeks and the last couple of months. It definitely had some pretty big disruptions to what we would normally do. Now that's going to change. Now we've already had the whole trying to understand our customers through the transactional data, trying to understand them around the purchase patterns that we've had previously in the past, etc. There are so many ways that we can look at using data to understand our customers better. From in an educational environment, understanding the at-risk students that you might have in terms of failing subjects, in terms of failing out of courses, for example, being able to get great quality data around those students without overstepping the boundaries of privacy and surveillance laws that come into play in various areas, particularly across Australia, is super important, because you can absolutely help those students and get a great educational outcome. We also have other ones on another side. There's a great example of organizations where they just don't have great data on the customer journey and being able to understand where the journey starts and where the journey actually finishes. There's an example I like to use about a financial institute that sells credit cards, and they had an application process going forward, and they found that they were getting roughly 80 to 90% of the people who were starting the application process were dropping out. They were abandoning at one of the last steps. Now they went through the whole thing, and finally they understood why. Is because they without doing it, they had no idea they were losing. If you consider that a credit card application, successful one, is typically around $500 a year per successful applicant, and you lose 4,000 of those, that's quite a significant chunk of money which you may be losing. And understanding the underlying reasons as to why people were abandoning required them to go forward and actually capture the data and understand the whole journey, the whole steps that people were taking to do this. And they found out at the end of the day, it was literally because they were asking people for their phone numbers so they could send them robocalls. And people were getting really frustrated with the idea that they might get some robocalls. They hadn't actually phrased it correctly, where they were trying to say, we will send an automated call in security in case something happens to your card. But the way it was phrased was completely different. It really upset what a lot of people were doing. So having great quality data and understanding the reasons why can really help you with your customer experiences, either improving current journeys and current experiences that people have, or taking them far further into a new experience and using different technologies and different kinds of experiences which you may bring to the table as well. Something to keep in mind with this, and I know a lot of people like to have recommendation engines and so forth, and what the biggest frustration we in our research that comes back to us from end users, in particular consumers, is unwanted advertising. It's stuff which just is not relevant to them, and that continues to happen today. I don't know, probably all of you have got similar experiences. You probably had it today, if not this week, if not this month, of ads being sent to you which you just aren't really interested in and just feel like spam itself. So we haven't got that right yet. And a lot of the time it's because we don't actually have the right quality data about our customers and really understand our customers yet. So there's absolutely still some great opportunity to understand our customers better. The second opportunity, which we like to talk about, and I know I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here when we say it's not about the technology, but it's the opportunity. But there is this idea of automation and using, in particular, machine learning and AI, if you like, artificial intelligence. Now, you can define AI in any way that you like. I'm not going to get into a long description of what we think AI is and isn't today, but whatever you think it is, from a basic if statement in chatbots through and decision trees through to some of the neural network sort of stuff, there is absolutely great opportunity to apply automation and machine learning to a lot of the things that you do today. We worked with one client, for example, in Darwin in the Northern Territory, and they're a fisheries organization, and trying to understand one of the big challenges in fisheries, obviously, is bycatch. And when you're pulling in a net or trawling in a net, you may pull in species that you just don't want. It may be endangered species as well. So it makes it very difficult. But a lot of the actual management of what goes on in the on-ship decision-making is very intuitive. It's based on experience. It's based on gut feel. If you like, because understanding what's in your net in murky waters out at sea in sometimes pretty robust conditions is pretty hard to do. So we worked with them to try and come up with a solution, and they came up with this image recognition technology which you could put as cameras into the nets and actually capture imagery data on what kind of species were in the net at any given time, and so therefore have automated alerts that allow them to make better decisions and reduce their bycatch of unwanted species and to improve their actual haul on a given day. So better for the environment, better for the commercial operators, and also better quality data for the authorities to try and manage their fisheries environments as well. Now, another part of this is, don't think about, well, first of all, any machine learning, any AI project that you undertake, you will need fantastic, high quality data, and you need to have some transparency around this and some great principles around the ethics of what you're actually doing. But the reverse side of that is you should also be looking at how can you apply that the ideas of automation, the ideas of AI back onto your own data management program? How can you use the kinds of tools to actually make sure that you're identifying abnormalities or in your data sets, that you're helping your users to have better smarts around the way that they're entering data and they're actually getting the right data into their environment. So then therefore you can have a virtuous circle, if you like, of getting better data, better higher quality data, and continue to improve that over and over time. And it just allows you to continue to create better opportunities for your organization in so many different areas. I'll kind of stop there when it comes to the AI and automation conversation just for a little bit. And we're going to go ask a poll question next, which I'll just show up at the moment. And the team's just going to put it up now for you to be able to have some responses for it. But the basic question that we want to ask is around, what role does AI play in your own organization's data quality? Do you actually do anything at the moment? Now, my organization, we run multiple surveys all the time. We have our own databases that we run to, and when we're running our surveys, for example, we absolutely throw a couple of modules across the data that we get back to try and understand any of the abnormalities that are sitting there at the moment. Now, for all of you, there's a couple of different options here. Is no, you're not using any AI at all, and it's all rule-based, or you are in the process of evaluation. You've deployed it for select cases, or you're using it widely at the moment. So just please take a second and make your choices there for us. In our experience, in executives that we speak to, so non-technology people, not necessarily someone who's responsible specifically for the data environment, AI in 2 out of 3 organizations is seen as a really positive development, something that absolutely we want to pursue, that we want to go after, because it's got such great potential behind it. It's really pregnant with opportunity at the moment. Obviously, it's also got its existential issues, but there's absolutely opportunity that sits behind it. So let's take a quick look at some of the results now, if we can as well. And we're just coming up now. So many of you are still rule-based when it comes to it, and a couple there. So 7 out of 10 are still very much no AI at the moment, and very much rule-based. One of the things I would suggest that you will start to see, if you're not already getting this, is even if you aren't yourselves actively pursuing or proactively going after, we're going to have an AI strategy itself, and this is going to be our thing, your suppliers and your vendors will start to bring in AI-based features and functions into the solutions and the software that you start to use today and going forward as well. So do expect that, and make sure your organization understands it. It's going to be something that is really just across the board in pretty much everything that we do. Now, the third opportunity, which I want to talk about, is really something which has had probably the biggest upheaval in the last few weeks in so many different places. It's been quite the pilot program of everyone having to do remote working or teleworking or working from home, or whatever terminology you'd like to use. And I think for many organizations, it's been a real exercise in moving quickly and being agile and being able to adapt and respond to circumstances really, really fast. And thankfully, a lot of organizations have. Where I am at the moment, there are many organizations which haven't. And it's exceptionally frustrating for a lot of people in terms of their own personal safety and so forth, but also just the assumptions and decisions that are being made with little data about what actually happens in your workplace. There are so many organizations. Now, if you've gone through something, for example, an office renovation or a new building move or something of that nature, you may have gone through an occupancy study of some kind or another, just as one very, very simple example, which tells you, do you actually know what value you're getting from your real estate investments, for example? Do you know how often your employees are sitting at their desks? Do you know how often meeting rooms are actually used? What happens in those meeting rooms? How productive the conversations and the collaboration that happens within those spaces, is it performing to the level that you want it to be performing? Do you know how well processes run from end to end in these workplaces? Are they digital? Can they be automated? Do you actually have that information around your human resources around how often people take leave in your organization. Do they have leave owed? Are you leaving money on the table? Are they not healthy? Are they not happy? Have you run, for example, things like using smartwatches or other fitness trackers, activity trackers to help people get healthier in the workplace? Or have you looked at using IoT devices, for example, and in collaboration or integrated with image recognition systems that can help with people in potential occupational health and safety situations, which may be somewhat of a safety risk, for example, on mine sites, on utilities, environments, in other theatres where there is a certain physical risk to the employee as well. There are all these opportunities at the moment where we can apply better data to get better results from our workplaces and our work styles, because for many of us, our biggest cost in our organizations is our people. And so it makes a lot of sense from our perspective. And I think considering the current environment and what we've all gone through in terms of working change, it's going to be something that we're going to have to make decisions on in the next few weeks, in the next few months, if not the next few days for some of us, as restrictions start to get lifted and things may change back to the way they were. But we're going to have to make decisions and really, do we have the data? Do we have great quality data that underpins those decisions? For a lot of organizations, no. So we absolutely believe that this is a great opportunity to improve our data quality in this area, and even just the quantity of the data, but obviously making sure that that's got some great veracity in the data, that we can trust it, because as we all know, you lose that trust in the data and you basically lose the opportunity. People are always going to find a way to go around things and go back to gut decisions or experience rather than relying on evidence itself. So that's the third opportunity. Going on to the fourth one, which is a big one that we find in our view around, we know that there's been that change. We know that in the way that a lot of systems are structured and architected today is not trying to be a one integrated everything, or an organization that does absolutely everything. No one really does that anymore. You don't try and do everything yourself. You have to rely on partners, and often the stronger the ecosystem is that you play with, the better the opportunity is before you. Not always the case, but often that is absolutely the case. So we think being able to either provide your own data, that great quality data, through to your partners and to potential new partners or existing partners, and to improve the federation of that data between the two of you, to be able to use APIs and the API economy in a great way to extend or expand your competitive moat is a smart thing. And we see that in a lot of different areas. Perhaps one of the most frequently cited areas of this is the open banking world, in terms of what's happening and trying to give better access to data through APIs. But it's not just that. There are, if you look at, for example, the programmable web, and in terms of what it's looked at in terms of tracking web-based APIs that have been opened up for different areas, there's been huge growth. We've got now, I think, closer to 30,000 different web APIs that are available to use and to access for it. So you can't give your partners bad data. It just makes everything fall down. I mean, that's a pretty common sense thing to say, but you'd be surprised at how many organizations we know that we deal with who are trying to prepare for things like, for example, in Australia, the consumer data right, who just say, we don't trust our own data. We don't have great quality data in our own environment. Now, hopefully that's going to improve, and we really, really see a lot of them working very hard to do that. But ensuring that, you've got the data there and it's great quality, and then allowing access to that, or working out ways where you can create an ecosystem of partners, is only going to put you in a better position. Regardless of whether you're in a commercial or non-commercial environment, it does put you in a very good position to be able to share data in a right way that reduces cost, reduces replication of roles, replication of documentation, etc. Trying to be able to make sure that we can make it the most efficient as possible is a smart thing to do. So let's pause for a second, and we've got another poll question coming up now, and the team will just put this up in a second. But we want to look at a little bit around what's going to be your priorities in 2020, and in particular now that we know that many of you have gone through some pretty significant changes. We've all gone through quite a lot in the last few months, and we may be heading into a recovery phase. Some of us may still be hit pretty hard right at this present moment, and obviously the economic forecasts are not always that rosy at the moment. So where are you going with your own organisation at the moment? So from the following options, what is going to be your highest priorities in 2020? Is it going to be around the cost conversation and improving your actual internal processes? Is it looking at things like AI and machine learning to drive that automated environment, to drive that new business, the agile organization? Is it moving to the cloud still? Is it moving back from the cloud, perhaps? But let's look at it that way. Is it the customer experience, or is it looking at things, for example, like digital marketing? And there's your 5 different options. So I'll just give you a couple of moments just to respond. We, as I said, we did prior to the pandemic hitting, the cloud conversation was still very, very strong in terms of all the research and all the customers that we work with. But it wasn't necessarily just a cloud first. We're going to pick up all of our data and move it across to one of the big public clouds. It was a much more mature conversation happening over the last 24 months around what's the best place for this data set and this application that's going to use it, and how are we going to do this in an agile way and break it down into microservices and be able to move really, really quickly to get better value and innovation out of our investments. Customer experiences was always one at the top. And so let's now look at the results. Yeah, quite what we expected, to be really honest. Looking now at around how we can focus internally around our own organizations and our own business processes, in addition to some of the customer experience and cloud stuff. So very much what I expect at the moment. So, and it very much aligns with the last opportunity that we see, which, to be honest, this is a perennial opportunity. It's something we should be doing all the time, and it's not to be looked at as separate from all of the ones that we've done before. It should really be something that is integrated with that. Whether it's looking at your workplace, whether it's looking at your customers, but there are many opportunities to go back now, and in our view, in particular, if your organization was one of those organizations that hadn't supported, for example, working from home or telework previously, and in the last few weeks, you've suddenly been able to move really, really quickly and to be able to support it, you've got to ask yourself, why can't you move that quickly normally? Why can't the core of your business, why can't what you do move really, really quickly? Is it an issue of the data that you have available to you? Is it the issue with whether people trust that data and making decisions with it? Is there no political or commercial will to make these decisions? Is there is your organization in a cultural rut where it just won't change, even though the data may be saying something else and it should be doing something else? There are lots of ways that we can look back at who we are as an organization and to look at the core of what we do, and to do that via an evidentiary lens, to do it via the data that we've got available to us. Now, obviously, that, as we've been saying throughout, as I've been saying throughout this conversation, is that relies on the quality of the data that you've got. If you don't trust the provenance of it, if you can't prove it to the leadership and also to the grassroots people, and they don't understand or don't trust the data itself, then you're going to have a challenge. So making sure whatever you do shows that the data itself is of the highest level and is of the highest quality is always something you need to keep in mind and to strive for as well. So otherwise you won't be able to help your organization drive its core to those new heights and the places that we want to go next with our organization. So Let me pause there and just finish off with a couple of things that we think you should do before I hand it back to Della and we hear from David. A couple of steps to take that we think is a great opportunity. And this is something you should be doing all the time. It's not, let's do a long-term 10-year plan sort of thing, but it's do really faster discovery and planning sessions with a whole group of multi-stakeholder people that look at the data that you've got. Now, I mean, also include your vendors, also include your service providers, bring them in and you know, do it from a customer's perspective or from the employee's perspective. You know, obviously start from that point, and perhaps a design thinking conversation is a good way to look at this, and then look at how you can actually use your data in a better way to take whatever the opportunities are, whether it's some of the kind of bigger picture conversations or opportunities that I just outlined, or whether it's something specific to your industry. By all means, do it, and do it quickly, and do it in an agile fashion. Make sure you're doing your sprints and you're moving very, very quickly with this, because there's no reason why we shouldn't. Platforms and technology, making sure you're looking at people that have that great forward view for you, that can help you move and take advantage of things like AI and machine learning being built into what you do, and making sure that it's something which aligns with your principles around, you know, simplification and agility around platforms and technology as well. Quality and security. Any data conversation has to have these two things built in by design. It's not after the fact conversations. These are the things you've got to drive through at the start. And if you do, then it allows you then to do that innovation and that iteration of things. Happy to go through more of some of these steps to take. And obviously that's a really very brief shotgun view of what you might do. But talk to your trusted partners. Go and have a talk to them now. Make sure that you're doing it with an open view of what's happening, what's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months, because things are changing, changing much faster than we expected. We always say that in the world of technology and data, but it's absolutely true right at the moment. So I wish you all the best with that. And let me pause there and then hand back to Della just to hand over to David from there. So thanks very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Thanks, Trevor, for sharing the insights. And I think the steps that you recommend to take is really valuable. And also thank you for everyone for participating in the poll. It's great to see, you know, how the results compare to the research. I would like to hand it over to David to talk about the self-driving data management, so what that means, and to the market, and where we see the data management space will go. So David, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Della. Hello, everyone. This is David speaking. I want to first thank Trevor for the presentation he gave us. It's always good to have a research available like this. So thank you for doing that and for sharing the results with us, because it gives everybody the opportunity to see what other people are focusing on and maybe learn something from that and adapt based on that. So with that said, I want to now talk about the Ataccama One platform and how the 5 opportunities Trevor was referring to are actually reflected in the product itself. Ataccama lately announced the concept of self-driving data management and data governance. And that's what I want to quickly introduce with the focus on data quality. So the Ataccama portfolio expanded quite a lot over time. So we added the metadata management capabilities, such as, for example, data catalog, profiling the data, and data discovery, discovering the context and the semantics value that actually lies in your data, the real value. We also have a business glossary, we have policies in the platform, and overall, the platform is quite flexible, so you can configure other types of metadata, such as metadata about BI reports, your business processes, about your APIs. In general, any metadata you want to manage, you can manage it in Ataccama One. Together with that, this is the newest addition to the product, the metadata management. We have always been doing data management. So the core capabilities such as data quality, data integration, and over time also reference data management and master data management have been part of our portfolio for many years. And with the addition of metadata management, we are actually able to focus on the whole data governance. We really do believe that if you want to do data governance, you need to cover both of these areas. Doing just one is not going to be good enough. And this is actually the future for Ataccama One, to really be the one platform for data governance. And the data governance should be kind of special. So that's why we position it as a self-driving data management and data governance, because the combination of those two areas actually allows us to automate and optimize a lot of processes. And that's why we are able to confidently say that the platform is self-driving. Let me drill down to that and explain what it means exactly. I have a couple of points for the data quality and how self-driving data quality means. And actually, this is not new because Trevor was speaking about this a few minutes ago. We want to focus on automation. And one of the end results of self-driving data quality is the availability of data quality across your whole environment where it actually matters. So the data quality is available by default, by design. Once you start using the platform, once you start populating your data catalog, once you start importing all the available data sources you have, the data quality is actually there out of the box, thanks to the automation. So thanks to the combination of metadata management that's available, business glossary, business rules, and information in data catalog, and the data processing, we are actually able to evaluate the quality of your data and provide the data quality results immediately out of the box without any necessary configuration or some onboarding process. So that's one thing, how the self-driving aspect can help your organization, providing data quality automatically where it matters for the relevant assets. The same thing actually applies to standardizing the data. So it's not only about validating, but cleansing and standardizing. So in a similar way as we are able to automate the data quality monitoring, we are actually able to cleanse the data and make sure that no user uses data with low quality, but we are able to provide a process that would cleanse the data automatically. And the last point is really key, and this reflects to the AI aspect Trevor was talking about. Since the data quality wars is still heavily relying on rule-based approach, which is not going anywhere and it stays and it's there for a reason, we are also focusing on the pattern-based approach for one specific reason, and that's scaling your operation. So the side effect of rule-based approach is that it's manual. So somebody has to come in, they have to take a look at the data, they have to define the rule, they have to modify the rule, adjust it, optimize it, and then they need to create two different versions for the same rule for different data sets. And this is a never-ending process that's basically not sustainable. Once you will be adding more and more data sources to your environments, the operational cost would be so big that basically the effort would be a waste of your resources. Maybe the data sources you would be validating wouldn't be used that frequently, and you would still miss a lot of things. So with the pattern-based approach, you can actually rely on the new technologies such as machine learning that will be able to automate the process. They will be able to find the relevant assets quickly and then apply the data quality checks automatically. And I'm saying data quality checks because basically it's based on the pattern recognition and time series prediction, etc. So there is actually no rule defined behind the curtain that's doing the validation. Actually, I have a couple of examples to show you, not only to talk about what it is, but so you can imagine what the benefit is. What you are looking at now is Ataccama 1 data catalog, and we are looking at the detail of party table. So this is the metadata that's available in data catalog by default, okay? So nothing happened manually. This is how the data catalog looks once you populate it. You can see, besides some information about the table, which are not relevant at the moment, you can see a data quality, which has been automatically calculated since we have all the metadata in one place and we are able to process the data as well. So when I'm a data analyst and I open data catalog, I search for customer data, we can see that this is actually customer data set. I will immediately see the quality of this data set, and it will help me to somehow decide if this is the data set I want to use. On the right, we have insights widget, and this is actually the pattern-based approach because there are some anomalies that have been automatically detected. And for example, this one is referring to attribute birth date, And there are some outlier values with those string values, null, not a number, and some default date value. And if you were supposed to define a data quality rule for detecting anomalies like this, you would really have to go dataset by dataset, and it would always be reactive. There is no way how you can predict which value will suddenly start appearing in the dataset. The pattern-based approach is actually not reactive, but it's proactive, because it can detect the outlier value in this case, or anomaly in general, automatically. And we have another anomaly underneath that's talking about unexpected distribution in a customer attribute. So I guess some distribution in the customer type changed drastically. So this is another type of information that the platform is automatically able to notify you about without defining any rules. So this is a combination of both approaches. You have the rule-based approach, and you can see like the validity dimension, consistency dimension, etc. But you also have the pattern-based that allows you to be always up to date with the changes in your data sets and then adopt based on the findings. Another example of how data governance in our perspective, meaning the combination of metadata management and data processing, can look is visible in data lineage. This is a data lineage view of it's the same party table, and you can see how this party table has been created, and you can see where it's also being used. And those are probably the layers in the data warehouse. And you can see the data quality at each layer. So you can actually see how the data quality is improving. This is a huge benefit, again, for everybody who is trying to decide if this is the data set they want to use or not. So thanks to the combination of the metadata and all the available metadata assets, business rules, business glossary, data catalog item, metadata, data lineage, we can actually combine all of this together. So to summarize, what are the key aspects of self-driving data quality? The data quality is available out of the box where it matters. It means we are not, let's say, blindly applying data quality everywhere. We are applying it on the relevant assets. So basically the process is optimized to save some processing resources. Thanks to the automation and thanks to the pattern-based approach, you can actually reduce the complexity of defining data quality. So the end users that are responsible for data quality don't need that significant technical expertise anymore, because the platform is basically positioned as an expert, and then the requirements you have for your staff are not that high anymore. This is a huge benefit nowadays because there is a lack of skilled technical people available on the market. So this benefit is actually quite huge. You can use the people you already have in the organization, and combined with the expertise embedded in the platform, you can make it work. And the last point is about adoption. So the platform is really flexible, as I mentioned. So you can modify it over time. You can define like different metadata types you want to be managing, and you can link it together with your data. And then again, the pattern-based approach would make sure that everything that's important is automatically detected, validated, cleansed, etc. So I know this was really brief, but I guess Della will now tell you what you can do if you are interested in much more information.
Yeah, thank you, David, for taking us through the self-driving data management. For those who don't know us previously, Ataccama covers all use cases in the data management space. So if you were more than happy to have a chat to talk about your data challenges and how Ataccama can help. So feel free to get in touch at info@ataccama.com. We're happy to organize a tailored session with you. So I think now it's time for Q&A. We do have a couple questions around the self-driving data management. So the first question from the audience is about scaling. So in terms of scaling, can you also scale the data processing, not just the processes? David, I think this is a question for you.
Yeah, sure. So I was referring to scaling the processes, that's correct. But the deployment of the platform is actually hybrid, and we have multiple deployment options. And one of them is cloud-based. Also, we have a deployment on big data environments. So in those cases, you can actually run the processing directly on the cluster So you can use the available resources of the cluster of the big data lake. And you can do the same for cloud resources. So if you have your data at, I don't know, Amazon S3 buckets, you can run the processing directly on the same environment. So this is supported.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is around automation. So if I want to run specific data quality check manually, how can I somehow override the automated process, and how does that work?
Sure. So obviously this presentation I had was simplified, and it was like a sneak peek. So I was only talking about the self-driving aspect, but the manual aspect is always there. And keep in mind that the users are always in full control. So everything that's happening in the platform is explainable and really transparent. So you can always override some validation, and you can apply validation manually. That's obviously available, but I was only focusing on the self-driving part. So both of these are supported fully.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the last question from the audience today is, how many people do you need to operate a data quality solution? How big is this cost saving in this regard?
I see. So it's difficult to say a number, like you need one person to do all of this. Obviously it varies based on the environment and complexity. But I would maybe describe the flow, how it works. Usually when you are starting with some data quality initiative and you, for example, want to catalog all your data sources and then apply data quality validation to the most relevant ones, you have to go manually through all data sources you have. Somebody has to catalog them, like import the metadata, really open table by table, and then decide whether or this table is relevant or not. They are usually not able to say by themselves, so they have to talk to other people, and so on and so on. So the starting point is huge, and you need to invest a lot of resources just to get moving. With the self-driving aspect, you just provide connection to your data sources, and we will automatically import the metadata that's available in the data source. We will generate additional metadata automatically. So we will do data profiling, we will do data classification. So we will automatically map the business terms from the glossary. And the starting point suddenly is completely different, because when the one user you have assigned to the project from the beginning opens the platform, it's no longer empty. It contains a lot of information, and really relevant information. And since the data quality checks are automatically applied or suggested based on the confidence, the user can just validate what has been automatically populated and then move on from there. So the initial cost saving is huge, because you can really outsource work that multiple people would have to do over a long period of time. You can outsource it to a system that will do it, I don't know, let's say overnight, based on the size of your environment. And then you will be immediately, let's say, familiarized with the state of your environment. So we are definitely talking about, let's say, lower number of users, let's say even one. One is definitely good enough for the start, but it's going to vary based on the data sources over time. So obviously, if you have multiple data warehouses and then a data lake, and you are trying to merge the data with a company you acquired a few months ago, obviously then the number of resources is going to grow.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Trevor, for the session. I think the session today really gives some insight to our audience around how they can get started with this journey. But if you have any question anytime, feel free to get in touch. Contact us at info@ataccama.com. We are more than happy to help. So once again, thank you for everyone for joining us. Have a good day. Thank you.